ASUS has been consistently releasing new ROG phones every year, launching with the overclocked variant of the contemporary Snapdragon chipset each time. They're also oftentimes the best gaming phones of their generation, even when the competition tries to compete and out-innovate them. Not too surprising though, given it is, after all, a member of the Republic of Gamers. But how does the ROG Phone 5, the fourth installation in the ROG Phone series, fare? Well, I'm Vincent Chan from Podder.net, and without further ado, let's dive right into it. We already did a standard unboxing, so let's make it quick this time around. In the box, you get a charger, and not just any random charger, but a 65-watt hypercharge power adapter with a USB-C output. ROG also bundles their customary braided USB-C to USB-C cable, so you don't have to worry about the cable failing anytime soon either. Very premium stuff here. On top of that, there's also the new Aero case to protect your device, as well as some stickers to customize your ROG Phone 5, or maybe some other stuff that you might want to slap a ROG logo on. Now, while the stuff in the box are decidedly more premium than pretty much every smartphone we have unboxed, ASUS didn't just stop there. Let's take a look at something that we didn't quite expect to be a part of the unboxing experience. There's an AR experience hidden in the manga that you can see on the inside of the box cover, and you can just scan it with your ROG Phone 5 to animate what would be still images. And at the end of it all, there's even a little game to draw attention to the AirTriggers 5, just in case you didn't realize they were there. After that, you get to create your own AR mask just for bragging rights on social media. Pretty cool, right? Now let's get into the device itself. The ROG Phone 5 touts a massive 6.78-inch AMOLED panel. It makes for quite a large device, although ASUS definitely tried to reduce the overall footprint with much narrower top and bottom bezels than what was on the ROG Phone 3. Instead of a mesh, you now get little slits that allow for higher screen-to-body ratio, even though the ROG Phone 5 isn't exactly bezel-less by today's standards. Not much has changed on the sides, with the right side being home to both AirTriggers as well as the regular physical buttons like the power and the volume key. The left side houses the pogo pins and secondary USB-C port, as well as the SIM tray, which you can see here is finished in red on the black ROG Phone 5. The bottom is where you find the primary USB-C slot, as well as the headphone jack. Yes, the ROG Phone 5 gets its 3.5mm audio port back, after much contention over its loss in the ROG Phone 3. Both ports are offset to prevent them from getting in the way during use, but of course you can always use the AeroActive Cooler 5 to add another headphone jack to the side of the device and never have to deal with wires coming out of the side of the ROG Phone 5, but more on that later. The top is bare except for two antenna lines and a very smartly hidden microphone hole. Try spotting it. ASUS seems to have carried over the same triple camera array from the ROG Phone 3 and also put it under a similar angular cover glass. I guess ASUS decided that if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and I do think it is fine considering that camera performance is probably not one of the main things that prospective ROG Phone 5 users will be considering. It protrudes quite a bit from the back though, which is quite interesting given how thick the ROG Phone is already. The rest of the back of the phone is probably a bit more interesting than its camera. While previously ASUS went with single LED designs for the illuminated ROG logo on the ROG phones, this time they went with two, allowing for significantly better customizations as you can see here. The illuminated portion also touts a dot matrix-like pattern, which reminds me of my one true love, the ROG Zephyrus G14. Just based on that alone, the ROG Phone 5 has caught itself a special space in my heart. There are some electro pink accents as well, but I guess the main dish is definitely the ROG logo here, and I absolutely love what ASUS did for this generation. Before we go any further, let's talk about the specifications. The ROG Phone 5 touts the Snapdragon 888, which is the flagship chipset of the year. Interestingly enough, they didn't wait for Qualcomm to release the Snapdragon 888 Plus, considering that they have usually waited until the second half of the year when Qualcomm releases their overclocked version of the contemporary flagship chipset to create the chart-topping ROG phones. This time, it is the same chipset as pretty much every flagship phone in the market right now, with its prime Cortex X1 core clocked at up to 2.84 GHz, 3 Cortex A78 performance cores clocked at 2.42 GHz, and 4 Cortex A55 efficiency cores clocked at 1.8 GHz. The GPU has been updated to the Adreno 660 that's clocked at up to 840 MHz. It offers all the latest features including support for Vulkan 1.1 as well as features like variable rate shading to further improve gaming performance. Our ROG Phone 5 here also touts an absolutely overkill 16GB of LPDDR5 3200 memory along with 256GB of UFS 3.1 storage. Unfortunately, microSD cards are not supported here, so if you plan on hoarding your media, you will either have to invest in some external USB-C drives or maybe subscribe for more cloud storage. The display of the ROG Phone 5 is a massive 6.78 inches, as we mentioned earlier, and while ASUS has bumped up the size, the FHD Plus resolution is maintained. The refresh rate is also kept at 144Hz, similar to its predecessor, but they have improved upon the display itself, sourcing one from Samsung featuring their latest E4 organic material. The display on the ROG Phone 5 can now go brighter at up to 1200 nits of peak brightness. It can display 111% of the DCI-P3 color gamut and a whopping 150.89% of the sRGB gamut, which is better than what most laptop displays today can offer. On top of being an absolutely beautiful display, the ROG Phone 5 now boasts of a 300Hz touch response and just 24.3 milliseconds of touch latency. The display itself is protected by a layer of Gorilla Glass Victus and touts an AS coating to prevent sweaty fingers from affecting your gaming performance. While the cameras are probably not the main focus of the ROG Phone 5, ASUS still packed it with a decent setup. You get a main 64MP Sony IMX686 sensor sitting behind a f1.8 aperture for its main camera, a 13MP ultra-wide shooter, and a 5MP f2.0 macro camera that doesn't have autofocus. The ROG Phone 5 can shoot up to 4K 60 or 8K 30 video and 4K 120 slow motion videos. Meanwhile, for selfies, you get a 24MP f2.0 front-facing camera that can do up to 1080p 60 videos. It also supports portrait mode for the cute bokeh effect and auto HDR, so you can get better shots in more challenging lighting conditions. As it comes with the Snapdragon 888, the ROG Phone 5 also supports a multitude of 5G bands along with Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2. There's NFC, dual-band GPS, and also support for USB 3.1 Gen 2 and DisplayPort 1.4 via its secondary USB port on the side. The bottom one, however, only supports USB 2.0 speeds. Keeping everything powered up and running is its 6000 mAh battery. Recharging is going to be a quick process as ASUS doubled up on the charging rate to 65 watts versus the 30-watt charging speeds that were featured in the ROG Phone 5's predecessors. The charger is a USB PD charger, which makes it suitable to charge your laptop as well, provided that your laptop supports USB PD charging. The ROG Phone 5 will definitely not qualify as a slim device with its 9.9mm thickness, and it is also quite heavy at 23.9 grams. With that said, it is only marginally taller than the ROG Phone 3, despite the display here being 0.19 inches larger. And yeah, that's it for the specifications. It is now time to check out the benchmark figures. Do note that these numbers are tested on the dynamic performance profile without the fan installed to keep things fair versus the competing devices, which more often than not will not come with fans. We'll be checking out the results with the AeroActive Cooler 5 a bit later. In Antutu, the ROG Phone 5 is currently the fastest device we have tested. It outperformed the Mi 11 and also the Galaxy S21 Ultra with its Exynos 2100. The last gen devices don't even hold a candle to the performance that the ROG Phone 5 can put out. Geekbench sees the ROG Phone 5 slip up a bit, but just barely so. It loses a few points versus the Mi 11 in single core, but regains its footing in multi-core. Once again, it boasts of a very nice lead over its predecessor to the tune of 9% in multi-core and 15% in single core. The S21 Ultra is once again uncompetitive with its Exynos 2100 chipset. Being a gaming phone, graphics performance is probably going to be the ROG Phone 5's main focus. Good thing that the Snapdragon 888 Adreno 660 is an absolute beast. The ROG Phone 5 demolishes the Exynos 2100 in the Galaxy S21 Ultra, and there's no two ways about it. The Snapdragon 888 offers the most powerful GPU in an Android smartphone yet. It is in PC Mark that we see the ROG Phone 5 falter. Somehow it falls below its predecessor here and loses out to pretty much every device we compared it against. This is quite surprising, although I guess we can say that ASUS didn't optimize the ROG Phone 5 for productivity. Who buys a gaming phone to edit videos and work on spreadsheets anyway? Now let's showcase the full performance of the ROG Phone 5 is capable of in X Mode Plus, which is only accessible once you attach the AeroActive Cooler 5. In Antutu, scores go up by 3% to 736,468 points, although it is worth noting that most of the gains are already available by switching on X Mode without the fan. PC Mark sees the largest benefit from enabling X Mode and X Mode Plus, with the ROG Phone 5 now outperforming every flagship we have tested previously. GPU performance also sees a huge uplift, with the ROG Phone 5 delivering 17% higher scores with X Mode Plus enabled versus the standard dynamic mode. If you're planning on getting the most performance out of your ROG Phone 5, I would recommend shelling out the extra money for the AeroActive Cooler 5. Yes, it is no longer included in the box of the ROG Phone 5, unlike the previous generations. While it is difficult for us to record the thermals during the various benchmarks we run, a very easy way to gauge the effect of the AeroActive Cooler 5 is with the wildlife stress test. The ROG Phone 5 in the dynamic mode, with the data points indicated in blue, quite visibly throttles after the second run, with performance tapering off all the way until the 11th run when it achieves its stable state. Meanwhile, for the X mode performance profile, which is indicated in yellow, performance is initially higher, although it drops off even more significantly than in dynamic mode. It tries to deliver higher performance in burst, but it also results in worse performance in the long run. As you can see that the ROG Phone 5 remains very stable in X mode Plus with the fan, delivering excellent consistency across 20 runs. You might also notice that it has slightly lower scores in the beginning than in X mode, which is quite interesting. ASUS seems to have tuned the X mode Plus profile in the ROG Phone 5 to deliver consistent performance rather than the burst that we can see in X mode. Now let's talk about battery life. The ROG Phone 5's 6000 mAh battery affords a pretty decent 13 hours with the display set to 60Hz, and enabling the full 144Hz refresh rate drops it down to less than 10 hours. It is still very good, but not exactly great when you consider that its battery is significantly larger than most devices we have tested. The ROG Phone 3, which sports a similar 6000 mAh battery, manages close to 17 hours, indicating that the ROG Phone 5 is noticeably less efficient. Enough about the synthetic benchmarks, let's game. The ROG Phone 5 is a force to be reckoned with when it comes to mobile gaming, and it's not only because that it can put down some really impressive performance figures that we just saw earlier. ASUS designed the ROG Phone 5's internal layout to keep the hot hardware away from your fingers by putting the motherboard along the center of the device. As such, you can barely feel the heat even during extended gaming sessions. While COD Mobile and PUBG Mobile aren't enough to cause the device to heat up significantly, the Snapdragon 888 can get toasty in more taxing games like Genshin Impact, which sees the chipset go up to 43 Celsius even with the AeroActive Cooler 5 attached. The area right above the chipset is measured to be 45 Celsius, so luckily you won't be touching the area, since it is quite far from your precious thumbs. Removing the fan sees the temperatures creep up to 48 Celsius, so you might want to keep the fan attached if you plan to game for longer periods in comfort. On top of that, being able to fire, aim down sights or reload by tapping the AirTrigger 5s on the edge of the ROG Phone 5 surely offer an edge over many other flagships in the market. Even against other gaming phones, the AirTrigger 5 offers an advantage over the competition with support for dual partitions to effectively make for 4 triggers on top of sliding and swiping gestures. You can customize the triggers to do pretty much everything you want, and the customization is done by swiping in from the left side of the screen to bring up Game Genie, and then you can change the layout and function of the triggers. The sensitivity can also be tweaked, so you can actually rest your finger on the triggers and press down harder to actuate them. When it comes to the dual partition mode, you can tweak the width of each partition to your liking. If you want even more, you can get the ROG Phone 5 Pro and ROG Phone 5 Ultimate, as both of them have an extra pair of touch-sensitive triggers on the back. There's also motion control, which allows you to do various gestures by moving the device around, although I am not exactly a fan of using gyro controls in the first place. If you have the AeroActive Cooler 5, you can customize what the two pedals on the cooler do as well with Game Genie. We have already talked about the Game Genie, so now let's check out the bulk of the ROG Phone 5's customization. Armoury Crate is the main app for everything you can tweak on the ROG Phone 5. With the console tab, you can switch between the multiple performance modes and even customize the various performance parameters of your device. And of course, the RGB lighting is customizable here as well on a per profile basis. Essentially, you can set the ROG Phone 5 to glow in different ways depending on whether you are in X mode or the dynamic profile. Or if you're hanging out with your fellow ROG Phone 5 owners, you can also Aura sync your devices. Needless to say, there are plenty of settings to play with, considering just how feature-packed the ROG Phone 5 is. Now, back to the first tab, the game library. This essentially scans for the games you have installed on your device, and you can customize the settings for each game individually. There's the visual enhancement settings, graphics boost, which is supposed to improve GPU performance, and you can even set the refresh rate for the specific game. You can also tweak the screen's sensitivity towards your touch and swiping motions, as well as change the performance mode. The AirTrigger settings can also be tweaked from here as well, and also you can also adjust the key mapping if you use the ROG Phone 5 with the Kunai 3 gamepad. It makes for a very good gaming experience, but hey, are we even still surprised by that now? One thing that is definitely important enough to highlight on the ROG Phone 5 is the RGB settings. As mentioned earlier, ASUS went with 2 LEDs instead of 1 to allow for deeper customizations and cooler transition effects. The customization is done within Armoury Crate, and now with 2 LEDs, the modes that can play with have increased quite significantly. That's the static, Phone 5. Is it the gaming phone you wanted, breeding, prefer something else? Well, let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed strobing, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, let us know why so we can improve. Also, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more content like this. Color Cycle, Han from Podder.net, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye. Comment. Flash and Dash. Mixed Lights. And Rainbow. You can even choose what colors the rainbow mode will transition between, which is just next level awesome. Just look at the lighting. The dot matrix pattern just enhances the sexiness of the RGB lights, and while they aren't individually lit, they look like it, and I'm very happy with the overall outcome. And once you slap on the AeroActive Cooler 5, the RGB LEDs on the device shut down, and the LEDs on the AeroActive Cooler 5 now glows. The cooler does spot the same 2 LED configuration, so all the same effects can be applied here as well. Isn't it incredible? Moving on, it's time to talk about the visual and audio experience on the ROG Phone 5. I will start off by saying the display is a joy to look at. Colors are vibrant, and of course, being an AMOLED panel, true blacks are a given. The 144Hz refresh rate also makes everything oh so smooth, but you might not be able to notice any additional benefit over the 120Hz devices in the market. Now, speaking of which, ASUS has stagnated at 144Hz for 2 generations by now. The competition has moved on to 165Hz, and pretty much every flagship in the market now offers 120Hz, and some even come with higher resolution WQHD Plus panels instead of a FHD Plus one. While WQHD Plus won't be great for gaming, it does offer slightly sharper visuals, and deep down I do wish the ASUS did try to improve upon the display with either a faster refresh rate or a higher resolution. It might not be necessary at all, as the 6.78-inch panel here is stunning to behold, but it is an ROG phone after all, and I am used to seeing nothing but the absolute cutting edge from the Republic of Gamers. Which brings us to the audio on the ROG Phone 5. The built-in speakers sound great, and I would say that it will outperform quite a few laptops out there. There's a surprising hint of bass, and you can even tweak it in Audio Wizard to further bump up the bass. DxOMark did give a stellar rating for the audio capabilities on the ROG Phone 5. And I can see, or hear, why now? And I think you can too. Last but not least, the camera. It isn't the most interesting part of the ROG Phone 5, given that it is directly carried over from the ROG Phone 3. I have used some of the better camera phones in the market recently, and I can say that the ROG Phone 5 definitely doesn't compete in the same ballpark. Not like it has to, but ASUS seems to have fumbled with even the fundamentals. There's a pretty tangible lag between when you tap the shutter and when the ROG Phone 5 actually snaps the photo, which resulted in quite a few of my images turning out blurry. The situation is even worse if you try to use HDR, or when the ROG Phone 5 decides to use HDR when Auto HDR is enabled. Shots that would have taken zero effort with my other devices require a much stabler hand and more patience with the ROG Phone 5. With that said, when you do get a proper shot, the colors are very nice and the HDR effect can also turn out to be very good. The ultra-wide and macro camera also do a pretty decent job, but I must say that the macro camera definitely needs autofocus to be viable. In conclusion, I think that the ROG Phone 5 is definitely an amazing gaming smartphone. While the previous ROG phones were already impressive, somehow they still managed to top themselves. It looks downright gorgeous, the AeroActive Cooler 5 is a lot more useful, and the 65W fast charging is excellent for quick battery top-ups. The hardware is also great with the new internal layout ensuring that you won't feel uncomfortable even during long gaming sessions with the hot Snapdragon 888 under the hood. The display is also good, as is the audio experience. As an avid RGB fan, the lighting on the ROG Phone 5 is also very satisfying to play with. And while not the best, the camera can deliver good results in the right situation. It isn't perfect though, with rather mediocre battery life as we have seen, due to what might be poor efficiency from the Snapdragon 888 chip. The chip also runs quite hot, which luckily ASUS addressed with the improved layout. The new pogo pins for the accessories is also quite contentious, as it quite easily scratched the frame, on top of removing all backward compatibility with the accessories that made the ROG Phone series great. It seems that ASUS has to mess something up with every generation, and for the ROG Phone 5, it's the pogo pins on its side. With all that said, for RM3799, the ROG Phone 5 is a very strong option for ardent mobile gamers. I would definitely recommend paying the extra RM149 for the AeroActive Cooler 5 as well, as the extra buttons can come handy in more complex games, and the improved cooling does help when it comes to taming the Snapdragon 888. So what do you think of the ROG Phone 5? Is it the gaming phone you wanted, or do you prefer something else? Well, let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, let us know why so we can improve. Also, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram for more content like this. I'm Vincent Chan from Podder.net, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.